Hello, so today we are going to use a trend line to make predictions. I'm going to start by first doing it by hand, and then I'm going to show you how to do it with a calculator. So first thing I'm going to do is plot these points. 1 hour is 30 passengers, 2 hours is 40 passengers, 3 hours is 32 passengers, 4 hours is 40 passengers, 5 hours is 55 passengers. So you'll see that these points, this is a scatter plot, so the points don't directly line up to make a line, but it is a linear relationship, you can tell. It is a positive linear relationship because it is increasing. So I'm going to draw a trend line, and I want to have the same number of points above and below the line. Next, I need to use that line of best fit to make a prediction about the number of passengers on the boat during an 8-hour period. So hours are my x-axis. I'm going to go up from 8, and then I'm going to go over, and I would say that the line is like around the 65 range. Now, let's see what this looks like on a calculator. So here I've got my calculator. I'm going to click the spreadsheet. I'm going to make my first column hours. And I'm going to fill in the time. There was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I'm going to label my second column passengers. Arrow down 2 times. After 1 hour I had 30 passengers, 2 hours was 40, 3 hours were 32, 4 hours was 40, and 5 hours was 55. Once I filled in my table, I'm going to go back to the home screen. Now I'm going to click on the statistics. I need to label my x and y axis. So the x-axis is the hours. The y-axis is going to be passengers. So here's my scatter plot, which is pretty good, but it doesn't really match what I have here. So I'm going to adjust my scale. Just grab it from the bottom, grab it from the top. And then I'm also going to adjust the x-axis. Now that looks really close to what I had graphed by hand. Alright, so Rayhan's yacht holds 70 passengers. Each hour he stops at the marina to let some passengers off and on. The table shows how many passengers are on board during each hour of boating. So first we're going to graph it by hand. In the first hour, there's 30 passengers, so we put a point here. In the second hour, there's 40 passengers, so we put a point here. In the third hour, we have 32 passengers, so that's a little bit above the 30. In the fourth hour is at 40. And the fifth hour, there are 55 passengers. This made a scatter plot that has a linear relationship, but it doesn't make an exact line. So we are going to draw a trend line so that we can make a prediction. A trend line is going to go through the points to where you have about half of them above your line and about half of them below. So use your ID or some kind of straight edge to draw a nice straight line. Sure. Then it says use the line of best fit to make predictions about the number of passengers on board during hour 8. So I would go up from 8, hit the line, go over. So I would say in hour 8, I would have approximately 65 passengers. So that is how you would do it by hand. Now I'm going to show you with the calculator. Alright, so on this calculator, you're going to fill in a spreadsheet. Our first column is going to be hours. And we're going to fill in click it down 2 times. And we have our first hour, second, third, fourth, fifth. The second column is going to be passengers. And make sure that the number of passengers goes with the correct hour. So at 1 hour, there were 30 passengers. 2 hours, we had 40. Hour 3, there were 32. Hour 4 was 40. Hour 5 had 55. Make sure you press enter here. Otherwise, when you get to the point where we do our trend line, it does not work. Next, once you have your data entered, everybody got your data entered? Give me a thumbs up. Once you have your table, go back to your home screen. I'm going to hit the statistics. And in order to make this look like the graph on the previous page, I need to label my x-axis is going to be the number of hours. That's the independent variable. The dependent variable is the y-axis, and it is going to be passengers. Now this looks at like a zoomed in version of what I graphed by hand, right? I want it to look like what I graphed by hand. So what you're going to do is take your cursor and hover it on the y-axis at the bottom, and then put your finger right here on the middle. If you press and hold that center button, you can grab and adjust the y-axis. Then click that center button again to release it. Then grab it from the top, pull it down to like 90. Again, press the center button to release. Grab the x-axis, and we want it to go to about 9. So now, the graph that I have on my calculator looks almost identical to what I graphed by hand on my paper. Yes? Alright, so now we're going to make a trend line. You're going to press menu. We want to analyze our graph. We are going to do a regression. Oi! I pushed the wrong button because I don't want that kind of regression. Menu. Analyze. 6. And then I want a linear regression in the form of y equals mx plus b. So that's going to be the dark line. And this is the equation of the line, which is y equals 5x plus 24.4. So on our paper, we're going to write y equals 5x plus 24.4. X is the number of hours. So if I want to know in hour 8, I would write y equals 5 times 8 plus 24.4. 5 times 8 is 40, plus 24.4 would be 64.4, which is pretty darn close to the estimate that I got using my hand graph, which was about 65.
No, on mine it says 24.4.
Yours says